We are live.
Yay! It is a special Monday. This is Poor Dead Ned, and apparently my beautiful daughter Sansa's with us.
Whoa, 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 whoa. No Sansa. No Sansa. Elaine.
Oh,
Elaine.
wait, hold on.
No Sansa here.
Oh, okay. And of course, we have
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son. And if you're Ned, and if Triplet Targaryens, see Triplet Targaryens episode 1 is to be believed, that makes me your younger brother, which I suppose makes me Benjen.
Oh my God, you're back.
yeah, we have a Stark bookend.
Let's go through. We have some comments to read through here. Chris the Crow is waving with my wizardly ways. Mother Royan says, I woke up early and medicated. We'll try to stay awake.
Believe in you.
Also, it's the 20th anniversary of Return of the King. Anybody up for a watch party of the trilogy?
Oh,
Who knew?
I know Chris his ears perked up.
That's what we do on New Year. Start 2024 the right way. Mother Royan says, I'm home alone, so I might start early. Learn that I speak more Elvish than my son-in-law who built his own arcade.
Nice.
Chris says he wants to learn. Mother Royan says, a Elberth, Gilthoniel, Silivrin, Penna, Muriel? I don't know. Look it up and get started. Will do. All right.
This is Sansa 3, of course, and without further ado, take it away, Richard.
It's a wedding in the Storm of Swords that doesn't have a color. Storm 28, Sansa 3. On the morning her new gown was to be ready, the serving girls filled Sansa's tub with steaming hot water and scrubbed her head to toe until she glowed pink. Cersei's own bedmaid trimmed her nails and brushed and curled her auburn hair so it fell down her back in soft ringlets. She brought a dozen of the queen's favorite scents as well. Sansa chose a sharp, sweet fragrance with a hint of lemon in it under the smell of flowers. Maybe I should have worn my lemon shirt. The maid dabbed some on her finger and touched Sansa behind each ear and under her chin and then lightly on her nipples. Cersei herself arrived with the seamstress and watched as they dressed Sansa in her new clothes. Loving the armor, says Mother Royan.
Thank you. I didn't make it. I bought it.
The small clothes were all silk, but the gown itself was ivory samite and cloth of silver and lined with silvery satin. The points of the long, dagged sleeves almost touched the ground when she lowered her arms. And it was a woman's gown, not a little girl's. There was no doubt of that. The bodice was slashed in front almost to her belly, the deep V covered over with a panel of ornate Moorish lace in dove gray. The skirts were long and full, the waist so tight that Sansa had to hold her breath as they laced her into it. They brought her new shoes as well, slippers of soft gray doeskin that hugged her feet like lovers. You are very beautiful, my lady, the seamstress said when she was dressed. I am, aren't I? Sansa giggled and spun, her skirts swirling around her. Oh, I am. She could not wait for Willis to see her like this. He will love me, he will. He must. He will forget Winterfell when he sees me. I'll see that he does. Queen Cersei studied her critically. A few gems, I think. The moonstones Joffrey gave her. At once, your grace, her maid replied. When the moonstones hung from Sansa's ears and about her neck, the queen nodded. Yes, the gods have been kind to you, Sansa. You are a lovely girl. It seems almost obscene to squander such sweet innocence on that gargoyle.
Hey, I like it that it is moonstones that she's wearing, with the hint of the old gods and what was the pilot for the long night episode. It was Blood Moon.
And the winter verse of Tyrion's favorite song, which well, we think kind of hints at secret Stark symbolism of Val.
Yes.
Right.
Look, I just know that I heard that Sansa thought all of those queen scents smelled aggressively like broken dreams, and she didn't really like any of them.
And what better represents a broken dream than a lemon? and for the Val reference, see Triplet Targaryens episode 7, and for that reference, see Triplet Targaryens episode 4.
I think it's amazing that no matter what you say, you automatically know which episode it was. It's bravo.
Thank you. Tyrion is often compared to a gargoyle, which might be a Chimera reference. See the 3-minute science update video from Preston Jacobs?
Yeah, I'm leaning a whole lot more toward that theory. giving the mixed match color, the mixed match eyes, the actual scientific proof that it is possible for two fathers.
And the history with Sansa's life definitely gave her lemons. Yeah, I like that. This it's sort of implied with the second head of is it Magor, whoever it was that no, who was it that with the Golden Company? Anyway, they had a monstrous guy. I'll make it my mission to convince you, Tyrion Chimera. Yeah, Meleys the monstrous. That's it. So he had a second head growing out of him, which is kind of a relative to the Chimera kind of stuff, right?
Right.
That's all we need to make you a Tyrion Chimera T-shirt.
Now, gargoyle? A chimera, that is the lion with the bat wings and scorpion tail.
Yeah, it's apparently it is kind of, the gargoyle is kind of synonymous as well.
Okay.
Thrawn is a gargoyle.
And Preston talks about that in that video. It's like I said, it's less than 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
What gargoyle? Sansa did not understand. Did she mean Willis? How could she know? No one knew but her and Marjorie and the Queen of Thorns. Oh, and Dantos, but he didn't count. Our characters are often wrong. Cersei Lannister ignored the question. The cloak, she commanded, and the woman brought it out. A long cloak of white. Is she really ignoring the question, or is she answering the question? A long cloak of white velvet, heavy with pearls. A fierce direwolf was embroidered upon it in silver thread. Sansa looked at it with sudden dread. Your father's colors, said Cersei as they fastened it about her neck with a slender silver chain. A maiden's cloak. Sansa's hand went to her throat. She would have torn the thing away if she had dared. You're prettier with your mouth closed, Sansa, Cersei told her. Come along now, the Septon is waiting, and the wedding guests as well. No, Sansa blurted, no. Yes, you're a ward of the crown. The king stands in your father's place since your brother is an attainted traitor. That means he has every right to dispose of your hand. You're to marry my brother Tyrion. My claim, she thought, sickened. Dantos the fool was not so foolish after all. He'd seen the truth of it. Sansa backed away from the queen. I won't. I'm to marry Willis. I'm to be the Lady of Highgarden, please. I understand your reluctance. Cry if you must. In your place, I would likely rip my hair out. He's a loathsome little imp, no doubt of it. But marry him you shall. You can't make me. Of course we can. You may come along quietly and say your vows as befits a lady, or you may struggle and scream and make a spectacle for the stable boys to titter over, but you'll end up wedded and bedded all the same. The queen opened the door. Sir Meryn Trant and Sir Osmond Kettleblack were waiting without, in the white scale armor of the Kingsguard.
Can I just say that not only will Sansa not end up wedded and bedded then, but she'll also keep all her hair, Queen Cersei. So,
good point. How much more handsome is Peter Dinklage than Tyrion? I first saw him in The Station Agent. I'd marry him, says Mother Royd. Yeah,
he's definitely a good-looking man. I mean,
yeah, it's definitely a heck of a lot. That was a questionable casting decision, but they wanted to be. Well, they wanted to be more telegenic star.
Yeah, George wanted the brains that Peter Dinklage brings to the character. I mean, I understand why he did it. Yeah, there's one scene when he is walking up the stairs to go kill his father. He looks like a completely different person from the slightly raised head, but the camera looking down at him. I mean, in his face, dude looks bad. I mean, I wouldn't mess with him. I mean, he did a beautiful job as Tyrion, though.
Oh yeah.
Until the writing got cruddy.
Well, yeah. I mean, George was still working with the writers in season 4 and not in season 5, as you can kind of tell.
Oh yeah.
Escort Lady Sansa to the sept, she told them. Carry her if you must, but try not to tear the gown. It was very costly. Sansa tried to run, but Cersei's handmaid caught her before she'd gone a yard. See Alt-Shift X for image of book Tyrion. Yep. Yeah, his video on Tyrion is excellent.
Oh, yeah.
So Meryn Trant gave her a look that made her cringe, but Kettleblack touched her almost gently and said, do as you're told, sweetling. It won't be so bad. Wolves are supposed to be brave, aren't they? So Osmond is the replacement Hound here. I do wonder about Osmond's motivation, especially since Baelish thinks he has no control over him once he dons the white cloak. So did Peter initially try to involve Osmond in her escape, maybe, and he refused? It's not clear what exactly. I mean, I don't think he's actually talking about Osmond there. I think he's actually saying that he didn't control Sir Mandan. But anyway, I find it kind of interesting that Osmond is
a son in each camp. I mean, if Balon Swan is thinking I'm going to have a son in both, he can't be the only father that thought that it might be useful to have, little spies in each camp. So Father Kettle Black.
You thinking he's convinced Osmond to befriend Sansa and kind of using the Kingsguard as an excuse, knowing that Baelish doesn't believe he can control someone once they've got. That's interesting.
Right.
I like it.
I get it too.
Brave. Sansa took a deep breath. I'm a Stark. Yes, I can be brave. They were all looking at her, the way they had looked at her that day in the yard when Sir Boris Blunt had torn her clothes off. It had been the imp who saved her from a beating that day, the same man who was waiting for her now. He's not so bad as the rest of them, she told herself. I'll go. Characters usually have to tell themselves things that they aren't 100% certain are true. Cersei smiled. I knew you would. Afterwards, she could not remember leaving the room or descending the steps or crossing the yard. Well, that's an interesting loss of time that Preston likes to focus on. It seemed to take all her attention just to put one foot down in front of the other. Sir Meryn and Sir Osmond walked beside her in cloaks as pale as her own, lacking only the pearls and the direwolf that had been her father's.
That it seemed to take all her attention just to put one foot down in front of the other. A lot like Sam, maybe hinting that there's some Brandon leaping in both places.
Yeah, and it's also something that it's also like Jon climbing in the Frostfangs as well. And I think we may have come across it somewhere else. I can't remember, but
maybe in Cersei's Walk of Shame. Not that I keep trying to bring attention to it.
Yeah. Joffrey himself was waiting for her on the steps of the castle sept. The king was resplendent in crimson and gold, his crown on his head. I'm your father today, he announced. You're not, she flared. You'll never be. His face darkened. I am. I'm your father, and I can marry you to whoever I like, to anyone. You'll marry the pig boy if I say so, and bed down with him in the sty. His green eyes glittered with amusement. Maybe I should give you to Ilyn Payne. Would you like him better?
There's a gif out there that's like a dude kicking another dude in the nuts so hard that he flies off of a balcony. I always think of that when I read this scene. I'm like,
Lady Thistle says, being brave, going to their marriage. Mother One says, Tyrion is so much better than Joffrey. Sansa lucked out.
Granted, I'm extremely partial to Jaime, but at this point in the story, Tyrion is not the dark gargoyle monkey demon that he's.
Well, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but
right. I mean, it's still there.
There's some hints there, yeah. But I agree. He's not. He hasn't wished he was the monster they all thought him yet. Right. That's not till later on in this book.
This is before he kills his father, and the official start of that downward.
I count that moment of I wish I were the monster. You wish you all believe me. I count that moment as his Jaime could fill fill his page with whatever he would like.
Yeah.
However he phrases that. Right.
Yeah.
Her heart lurched. Please, Your Grace, she begged. If you ever love me, even a little bit, don't make me marry your. So was she going to say headsman or executioner here? She'd accepted Tyrion and was horrified by Sir Ilyn. So our characters are often wrong and they get interrupted, and I just wonder if she's going to say, your executioner, your king's justice, or something along those lines. And then Tyrion says, "Uncle," right?
I mean, Joffrey says, well, I mean, me and Lady Thistle definitely. I try to point out that George uses our assumptions against us a lot in these books, and again, you pointing that out. Our assumption is she's going to say your uncle, but I agree with you. It might have been.
It makes more sense if she's actually going to say your headsman, your executioner, your king's justice, something along those lines.
Your pig boy or whatever.
Within that too, and she wasn't going to say uncle.
Yeah. Because I agree with you. She's that Tyrion saved me. I mean, she's already thinking he's not. Granted, despite what he looks like. He's not Cersei. He's not none of these people here. He's not Joffrey. And And then
it also does make sense for her to say uncle. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not a bad interpretation. I just think it's quite possible that, especially the way George likes to interrupt things. I think it's kind of fun if she was actually going to say your executioner or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really good.
He saved her in the throne room. She remembers that. She knows.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a really good practice to automatically, every time George interrupts a sentence, to sit there and look at that sentence real hard and come up with different plausible explanations for what the sentence
quite
was
often
going
the
to be.
person was on the right track and was about to solve something, and then they it goes completely the other way as they get interrupted.
Same for any death we see that we don't see on page.
Exactly.
Uncle? Tyrion Lannister stepped through the doors of the sept. Your Grace, he said to Joffrey, grant me a moment alone with Lady Sansa, if you would be so kind. King was about to refuse, but his mother gave him a sharp look. They drew off a few feet. Tyrion wore a doublet of black velvet covered with golden scrollwork, thigh-high boots that added 3 inches to his height, a chain of rubies and lions' heads. But the gash across his face was raw and red, and his nose was a hideous scab. You are very beautiful, Sansa, he told her. It's good of you to say so, my lord. She did not know what else to say. Should I tell him he's handsome? He'll think me a fool or a liar. She lowered her gaze and held her tongue. My lady, this is no way to bring you to your wedding. I'm sorry for that, and for making this so sudden and so secret. My lord father felt it necessary for reasons of state, else I would have come to you sooner as I wished. He waddled closer. You did not ask this marriage, I know, no more than I did. If I'd refused you, however, they would have wed you to my cousin Lancel. Perhaps you would prefer that. He's nearer your age and fairer to look upon. If that is your wish, say so, and I will end this farce. I don't want any Lannister, she wanted to say. I want Willis. I want Highgarden, the puppies, and the barge, and sons named Eddard and Bran and Rickon. But then she remembered what Dantos had told her in the Godswood. Tyrell or Lannister, it makes no matter. It's not me they want, only my claim. You are kind, my lord, she said, defeated. I'm a ward of the throne, and my duty is to marry as the king commands. She might still have an Eddard, perhaps resembling the Hound, but officially fathered by Tyrion.
Well, I mean, it would make sense that the Lannisters would like to use a recognizable northern name for the child to assume.
Absolutely.
So an Eddard, or Brandon,
or Bran. Bran. Yeah.
But I think it's funny. No, not funny. I think it's odd that she has the opportunity to marry Lancel at this moment and doesn't.
Do you think they would be so bold as to name the first go Ned? Like, I don't know. It seems like
Bran might be better.
Almost like took your castle, named him Ned.
And Bran's sort of the default Stark name anyway, right? So
right.
He studied her with his mismatched eyes. I know I'm not the sort of husband young girls dream of, Sansa, he said softly, but neither am I Joffrey. No, she said, you were kind to me, I remember. Tyrion offered her a thick, blunt-fingered hand. Come then, let us do our duty. So she put her hand in his, and he led her to the marriage altar, where the septon waited between the mother and the father to join their lives together. She saw Dantos in his fool's motley, looking at her with big round eyes. Sir Balon Swan and Sir Boris Blunt were there in Kingsguard White, but not Sir Loras. None of the Tyrells were here, she realized suddenly. But there were other witnesses aplenty, the eunuch Varys, Sir Adam Marbrand, Lord Philip Foote, Sir Bronn, Jalabhar Jo, a dozen others. Lord Giles was coughing, Lady Esmeralda was at the breast, and Lady Tanna's pregnant daughter was sobbing for no apparent reason. Let her sob, Sansa thought. Perhaps I should do the same before this day is done.
Hey, the marriage was rushed, and we're automatically assuming again that the main reason is the Tyrell marriage. But what if it is to mess up Littlefinger's plans also? I mean, we have no hint of it, but
this is kind of his idea, though.
What's that?
They're doing this because Littlefinger came to them, though.
Well, yeah, he warned them, but Littlefinger was trying to stop that marriage too,
right?
To the Tyrell,
and to keep her somewhere where he could get to her,
right?
Yeah. So he did not want her leaving King's Landing. He did not want her to go to Highgarden. So Littlefinger's plan backfired on Littlefinger.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense. George likes that kind of irony that you do something for a plan and it destroys your own plan. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Rails out of the actual ceremony. It's almost like a ICU.
Right, but I'm saying that possibly the Littlefinger's plans for Sansa might have been known by somebody.
I don't think they're taking appropriate precautions if that's the case.
Yeah.
The ceremony passed as in a dream. Sansa did all that was required of her. There were prayers and vows and singing, tall candles burning, 100 dancing lights that the tears in her eyes transformed into 1,000. Thankfully, no one seemed to notice that she was crying as she stood there, wrapped in her father's colors, or if they did, they pretended not to. In what seemed no time at all, they came to the changing of the cloaks. I mean, it's not that unusual for tears to be shed at a wedding anyway, but yeah.
Yeah.
As father of the realm, Joffrey took the place of Lord Eddard Stark. Sansa stood stiff as a lance as his hands came over her shoulders to fumble with the clasp of her cloak. One of them brushed her breast and lingered to give it a little squeeze. Then the clasp opened and Joff swept her maiden's cloak away with a kingly flourish and a grin. His uncle's part went less well. The bride's cloak he held was huge and heavy, crimson velvet, richly worked with lions and bordered with gold satin and rubies. No one had thought to bring a stool, however. Tyrion stood 1.5 feet shorter than his bride. As he moved behind her, Sansa felt a sharp tug at her skirt. He wants me to kneel, she realized, blushing. She was mortified. It was not supposed to be this way. She had dreamed of her wedding 1,000 times, and always she had pictured how her betrothed would stand behind her, tall and strong, sweep the cloak of his protection over her shoulders, and tenderly kiss her cheek as he leaned forward to fasten the clasp. Mother Rowan says, "Can I shout out Diana Rigg? I used to watch her as Mrs. Peel." Yeah, absolutely. She felt another tug at her skirt, more insistent. "I won't. Why should I spare his feelings when no one cares about mine?" The dwarf tugged at her a third time. Stubbornly, she pressed her lips together and pretended not to notice. Someone behind them tittered. The queen, she thought, but it didn't matter. They were all laughing by then. Joffrey the loudest. "Dantos, down on your hands and knees," the king commanded. "My uncle needs a boost to climb his bride." So it was that her lord husband cloaked her in the colors of House Lannister while standing on the back of a fool. When Sansa turned, the little man was gazing up at her, his mouth tight, his face as red as her cloak. Suddenly she was ashamed of her stubbornness. She smoothed her skirts and knelt in front of him, so their heads were on the same level. "With this kiss, I pledge my love and take you for my lord and husband." So her stubbornness made her feel ashamed, angered Tyrion, but worse, it entertained Joffrey and Cersei at their expense. Right. For all those reasons, that's the reason that bothers me. But mostly the Joffrey and Cersei stuff. But anyway, so Chloe of Girls Gone Canon is like, oh, yeah, good for her showing up, and I'm like, well, adding amusement to Joffrey and Cersei is not a win in my book.
Yeah, no. Insert earlier mentioned GIF. But I have a question. When does Sansa start to remember her encounter with the Hound as she and the Hound kissed? And did she start remembering it as like a safety mechanism to remember against this being her first kiss? Like, is it something she fabricated? Like, it's better that... When did she
I don't know. I mean, I'm actually skeptical that Dantos's big sloppy kisses are all on the cheek. So I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
You've ruined the books for me. What?
"With this kiss, I pledge my love," the dwarf replied hoarsely, "and take you for my lady and wife." He leaned forward and their lips touched briefly. He is so ugly, Sansa thought when his face was close to hers. He's even uglier than the Hound. So strange that she thinks of the Hound during the kiss at her wedding. What could it possibly mean?
Thistle said it's straight.
Lady Thistle says that she already thought of it like that by now, pretty sure. Yeah, I think she may have had a little internal thought already that we may have discussed.
Probably right.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I know we've talked about it before, so yeah, it's definitely
I feel like it was when she was mentioning it. Yeah. She thinks about when hanging out with the Tyrell girls. Oh yeah, there you go. Yep.
Oh yeah, what would you think of? Yeah, okay.
Dantos is that is right. Mother Wine says Dantos is a fool and a creep. Oh yeah, absolutely. Exactly. The Septon raised his crystal high, so the rainbow light fell down upon them. "Here in the sight of gods and men," he said, "I do solemnly proclaim Tyrion of House Lannister and Sansa of House Stark to be man and wife, one flesh, one heart, one soul, now and forever, and cursed be the one who comes between them. I agree. Cursed be the little finger. In the sights of gods and men is the term Ned uses when Robert asks about Wyla in his second chapter. I dishonored myself and I dishonored Catelyn in the sights of gods and men. See Triplet Targaryen's episode 2.
Yep. Yeah.
She had to bite her lip to keep from sobbing. The wedding feast was held in the small hall. There were perhaps 50 guests, Lannister retainers and allies for the most part, joining those who had been at the wedding. And here Sansa found the Tyrells. Marjorie gave her such a sad look, and when the Queen of Thorns tottered in between left and right, she never looked at her at all. Eleanor, Alla, and Mega seemed determined not to know her. My friend, Sansa thought bitterly. I mean, what does she expect? I mean, they have to pretend like they didn't have the plan with her, so they're kind of, you know, that's the goal there for them. I think is to pretend like they weren't planning on taking her. Anyway.
Yeah, but she's 12, so we hate them.
Yeah. Her husband drank heavily and ate but little. He listened whenever someone rose to make a toast and sometimes nodded a curt acknowledgement, but otherwise his face might have been made of stone. So there's some possible grayscale foreshadowing, and maybe George hadn't known exactly who was going to follow that plot when he wrote this. Just a thought.
Gargoyle thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The feast seemed to go on forever, though Sansa tasted none of the food. She wanted it to be done, and yet she dreaded its end, for after the feast would come the bedding. The men would carry her up to her wedding bed, undressing her on the way and making rude jokes about the fate that awaited her between the sheets, while the women did Tyrion the same honors. Only after they'd been bundled naked into bed would they be left alone, and even then the guests would stand outside the bridal chamber, shouting ribald suggestions through the door. The bedding had seemed wonderfully wicked and exciting when Sansa was a girl, but now that the moment was upon her, she felt only dread. She did not think she could bear for them to rip off her clothes, and she was certain she would burst into tears at the first randy jape. When the musicians began to play, she timidly laid her hand on Tyrion's and said, "My lord, should we lead the dance?" His mouth twisted. "I think we've already given them sufficient amusement for one day, don't you?" "As you say, my lord." She pulled her hand back.
Joffrey and Martin had such a chance there. I'm so sorry, but he had a chance there. If he had just danced with her, what a different tone that could have been set just between the two of them in such a tough moment.
Sure.
And, you know, if he.
I think that her not kneeling for the cloak.
Absolutely, she should have kneeled.
Right. It's the reason for.
We're all on the same page there.
We're all human, but damn.
Yeah, that only helped Joffrey and Cersei.
Older than her, and so she is a child. I don't know. Like I think there's the age.
Yeah, I get it. She's a kid, and she's acting immaturely, and she's a kid. I get it.
In her mind, she just got. You can't.
But it was an opportunity. Yeah.
She's like, "Well, come dance with me and make me feel better because I'm 12," and he's like, "So I don't know."
Yep. Joffrey and Marjorie led in their place. How could a monster dance so beautifully? Sansa wondered. She had often daydreamed of how she would dance at her wedding, with every eye upon her and her handsome lord. In dreams, they had all been smiling. Not even my husband is smiling. Other guests soon joined the king and his betrothed on the floor. Eleanor danced with her young squire, and Mega with Prince Tommen. Lady Merryweather, the Moorish beauty with the black hair and the big dark eyes, spun so provocatively that every man in the hall was soon watching her. Lord and Lady Tyrell moved more sedately. Sir Kevin Lannister begged the honor of Lady Jaina Fossaway, Lord Tyrell's sister. Mary Crane took the floor with the exiled Prince Jalabhar Jo, gorgeous in his feathered finery. Cersei Lannister partnered first Lord Redwine, then Lord Rowan, and finally her own father, who danced with smooth, unsmiling grace. In his defense, he can't guarantee that she isn't going to use dancing as another opportunity to shame him in front of everyone. That's fair.
Yeah. Protect yourself.
Sansa sat with her hands in her lap, watching how the queen moved and laughed and tossed her blonde curls. She charms them all, she thought dully. How I hate her. She looked away to where Moonboy danced with Dantos. Lady Sansa, said Garland Tyrell. Sir Garland Tyrell stood beside the dais. Would you honor me if your lord consents? The imp's mismatched eyes narrowed. My lady can dance with whomever she pleases. This line could foreshadow an open marriage. Perhaps she ought to have remained beside her husband, but she wanted to dance so badly. Sir Garland was brother to Marjorie, to Willis, to her Knight of Flowers. I see why they name you Garland the Gallant, sir, she said. She took his hand. My lady is gracious to say so. My brother Willis gave me that name, as it happens, to protect me. To protect you? She gave him a puzzled look. Sir Garland laughed. I was a plump little boy, I fear, and we do have an uncle called Garth the Gross, so Will struck first, though not before threatening me with Garland the Greenstick, Garland the Gowling, and Garland the Gargoyle. There's another gargoyle reference.
Yep.
It was so sweet and silly that Sansa had to laugh despite everything. Afterwards, she was absurdly grateful. Somehow the laughter made her hopeful again, if only for a little while. Smiling, she let the music take her, losing herself in the steps, in the sound of flute, pipes, and harp, and the rhythm of the drum. From time to time, in Sir Garland's arms, when the dance brought them together. My lady wife is most concerned for you, he said quietly one such time. Lady Leonette is too sweet. Tell her I'm well. A bride at her wedding should be more than well. His voice was not unkind. You seem close to tears. Tears of joy, sir. Your eyes give the lie to your tongue. Sir Garland turned her, drew her close to his side. My lady, I've seen how you look at my brother. Loras is valiant and handsome, and we all love him dearly. But your imp will make a better husband. He's a bigger man than he seems, I think. So this is one reason why I'm not totally sold on the Radio Westeros belief that Garland is like the main poisoner. I get the theory is that the sweetest of the phrase is the one who planned the wedding,
right?
But why would he be trying to reassure that Tyrion's a good husband if he's about to carry out? Yeah.
Well, I don't think at this time the plan to kill Tyrion has even had time to even begin.
Well, you doubt it because you don't even think that the plan is what they think the plan is, right? That's part of why you doubt it.
First reference to Tyrion being referenced as a bigger man, because like in Winterfell, remember his shadow?
Well,
like Tyrion's
they've called him a giant as Aemon. Maester Aemon calls him a giant, right?
Well, he's got the tall shadow. She calls him her giant of Lannisters. Aemon calls him a giant.
I just don't. I don't see that. I don't see why he would be setting him up to fail so hard.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't buy their theory. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think Garland truly does like Tyrion. He knows what he did for the city.
He's potentially getting himself executed here at the Purple Wedding. Like he keeps speaking up at the Purple Wedding to chastise Joffrey, which is really dangerous. That's really dangerous. Now, some people would argue, well, that just proves that he's in on it.
Character.
But he didn't get killed before the poisoning. When he stands up to him like twice, I think, in the Purple Wedding, and that could get you killed before he's still breathing when you do it. He could still have you killed right then.
Well, anyway. Granted, the speed at which Joffrey goes off the handle is great, and he doesn't think things through. But the Tyrells know.
Yeah, he's too powerful for them to piss off.
Yeah, they're way too powerful for the Lannisters to do anything. Yeah. This is the only move that the Lannisters can make against the Tyrells and not have any repercussions for it. Because
because they don't officially know it. Yep.
Yeah.
It's their fault for not telling us. That would be the kind of the take, right?
Yeah.
The music spun them apart before Sansa could think of a reply. It was Mace Tyrell opposite her, red-faced and sweaty, and then Lord Merryweather, and then Prince Tommen. I want to be married too, said the plump little princeling, who was all of 9. I'm taller than my uncle. I know you are, said Sansa before the partners changed again. Sir Kevin told her she was beautiful. Jalabhar Jo said something she did not understand in the summer tongue, and Lord Redwine wished her many fat children and long years of joy. Then the dance brought her face to face with Joffrey. Sansa stiffened as his hand touched hers, but the king tightened his grip and drew her closer. You shouldn't look so sad. My uncle's an ugly little thing, but you'll still have me. You're to marry Marjorie. A king can have other women, whores. My father did. One of the Aegons did too, the third one or the fourth. Yeah, not the third one, that's for sure. He had lots of whores and lots of bastards. Odd-numbered Aegons tend to behave better. Anyway.
Queen of whores.
He had lots of whores and lots of bastards. As they were on the music, Jock gave her a
calling his mom a whore.
Yes, he is.
Well,
and I mean, she's the queen of whores. Jamie says it too.
Jamie thinks so. Yeah.
Sorry.
My uncle bring you to my bed whenever I command it. She shook her head. He won't. He will, or I'll have his head. That King Aegon, he had any woman he wanted, whether they were married or no. Thankfully, it was time to change again. Her legs had turned to wood, though, and Lord Rowan, Sir Talad, and Eleanor's squire all must have thought her a very clumsy dancer. It's weird how he's not was it Ashley Ambrose or whatever his name is? It's weird how they keep referring to him as Eleanor's squire. I guess that's all he is to Sansa. Anyway, and then she was back with Sir Garland once more, and soon, blessedly, the dance was over. Her relief was short-lived. No sooner had the music died than she heard Joffrey say, "It's time to bed them. Let's get the clothes off her and have a look at what the she-wolf's got to give my uncle." Other men took up the cry loudly. Dwarf husband lifted his eyes slowly from his wine cup. "I'll have no betting." Joffrey seized Sansa's arm. "You will if I command it." He slammed his dagger down on the table where it stood quivering. "Then you'll service your own bride with a wooden prick. I'll geld you, I swear it." A shocked silence fell. Sansa pulled away from Joffrey, but he had a grip on her, and her sleeve ripped. No one even seemed to hear. Queen Cersei turned to her father. "Did you hear him?" Lord Tywin rose from his seat. "I believe we can dispense with the betting, Tyrion. I'm certain you do not mean to threaten the king's royal person." Sansa saw a spasm of rage pass across her husband's face. "I misspoke," he said. "It was a bad jape, sire." "You threatened to geld me," Joffrey said shrilly. "I did, your grace," said Tyrion, "but only because I envied your royal manhood. Mine own is so small and stunted." His face twisted into a leer. "And if you take my tongue, you leave me no way at all to pleasure the sweet wife you gave me." Joffrey didn't say anything about taking his tongue, although it seems a reasonable thing to expect from him after threatening to geld him.
Yeah,
it's certainly there's a lot of this whole quiet lion foreshadowing, right?
The no betting ceremony set up the no betting. The marriage is not consummated. I think a little bit of Brandon leaping is at play here.
Could be.
To ensure that Sansa is still.
I just always love how, he gets so much grief from Tywin for no betting.
Yep.
Like, I think we can do without this.
Yeah.
Yep. Laughter burst from the lips of Sir Osmond Kettleblack. Someone else sniggered, but Joff did not laugh, nor Lord Tywin. "Your Grace," he said, "my son is drunk. You can see that." "I am," the imp confessed, "but not so drunk that I cannot attend to my own betting." He hopped down from the dais and grabbed Sansa roughly. "Come, wife, time to smash your portcullis. I want to play come into the castle." Red-faced, Sansa went with him from the small hall. What choice do I have? Tyrion waddled when he walked, especially when he walked as quickly as he did now. The gods were merciful, and neither Joffrey nor any of the others moved to follow. For their wedding night, they had been granted the use of an airy bedchamber high in the Tower of the Hand. Tyrion kicked the door shut behind them. "There's a flagon of good arbor gold on the sideboard, Sansa. Will you be so kind as to pour me a cup?" "Is that wise, my lord?" "Nothing was ever wiser. I'm not truly drunk, you see, but I mean to be." Sansa filled a goblet for each of them. It would be easier if I'm drunk as well. She sat on the edge of the great curtained bed and drained half her cup in 3 long swallows. No doubt it was very fine wine, but she was too nervous to taste it. It made her head swim. "Would you have me undressed, my lord?" "Tyrion," he cocked his head. "My name is Tyrion, Sansa." "Tyrion, my lord, should I take off my gown, or do you want to undress me?" She took another swallow of wine. The imp turned away from her. "The first time I wed, there was us and a drunken septon and some pigs to bear witness. We ate one of our witnesses at our wedding feast. Tysha fed me crackling, and I licked the grease off her fingers. We were laughing when we fell into bed." "You were wed before? I'd forgotten." "You did not forget. You never knew." "Who was she, my lord?" Sansa was curious despite herself. "Lady Tysha," his mouth twisted, "of House Silverfist. Their arms have 1 gold coin and 100 silver upon a bloody sheet. Ours was a very short marriage, as befits a very short man, I suppose." So his wife disappeared to Essos, showing up as a different character in the story. And then he married Hoster Tully's descendant, much like Eddard. See, Triple Targaryen's episodes 1 and 2. And our previous discussion of Lyanna as Tyrion's trueborn daughter in Clash 7 Tyrion 2.
And thanks for making it more awkward by bringing up how happy you were to tumble into bed with your first wife, Dick.
Sansa stared down at her hands and said nothing.
With as touchy of a subject, I'm not defending Tyrion at all, but as touchy of a subject as his first marriage is to Tyrion, is this the wine talking?
Yeah.
Or is this him opening up somewhat or somehow
Yeah,
in
trying
his
to
own
really
way?
be intimate with his
Only way he
wife.
knows how.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
like I said,
Yep.
he's not the demon monkey yet, but I mean,
Yeah.
He's
yet
not
not there.
How old are you, Sansa? Asked Tyrion after a moment. 13, she said. When the moon turns, a month shy, so also known as 12.
Well, in the Philippines, they count the 9 months you're in the womb. I'm just kidding.
Gods have mercy. The dwarf took another swallow of wine. Well, talk won't make you older. Shall I get on with this, my lady, if it please you? This isn't exactly true. Every minute of talk, she gets a minute older. Talking might not be the most practical solution, but it beats consummating with the 12-year-old.
Exactly.
It will please me to please my lord husband. That seemed to anger him. You hide behind courtesy as if it were a castle wall. Courtesy is a lady's armor, Sansa said. Her stepdad had always told her that. I'm your husband. You can
I don't think George R. R. Martin would let Sansa. Hey, River
Barbagola must be lying happening. Yep, that's certainly what Chloe would say.
I don't think George, even though we have the Danny, at 14, 15 ish. I don't think he would let the 12-year-old betting happen in this story, for
Danny
fear
was
of losing way too many fans or
Could be.
putting fans off.
Or it could be based on character and like how people would react to that character specifically.
Tyrion,
yeah. Well, he doesn't want people
I mean, I think it's.
Well, this is still when Tyrion is his favorite character to write, and he still wants people to like Tyrion until he starts to take that obvious darker turn. So he definitely is holding back on what he would let Tyrion do at this point in the story.
What happened in that barrel, Tyrion, made you so dark. That shipping crate.
I'm your husband. You can take off your armor now. And my clothing? That too. He waved his wine cup at her. My lord father has commanded me to consummate this marriage. Her hands trembled as she began fumbling at her clothes. She had 10 thumbs instead of fingers, and all of them were broken. Yet somehow she managed the laces and buttons, and her cloak and gown and girdle and undersilk slid to the floor, till finally she was stepping out of her small clothes. Goose prickles covered her arms and legs. She kept her eyes on the floor, too shy to look at him, but when she was done, she glanced up and found him staring. There was hunger in his green eye, it seemed to her, and fury in the black, since they did not know which scared her more.
See, that shows the inner battle. That our George is trying to let us know that there is an inner battle to Tyrion.
He knows. He's like,
Yep. You're a child, he said. She covered her breast with her hands. I flowered. A child, he repeated. But I want you. Does that frighten you, Sansa? Yes. Me as well. I know I'm ugly. No, he pushed himself to his feet. Don't lie, Sansa. I am malformed, scarred, and small, but you can see him groping. A bed where the candles are blown out? I'm made no worse than other men. In the dark, I'm the knight of flowers. He took a draught of wine. I am generous, loyal to those who are loyal to me. I've proven I'm no craven, and I'm cleverer than most. Surely wits count for something. I can even be kind. Kindness is not a habit with us Lannisters, I fear, but I know I have some somewhere. I could be good to you. He had kindness with Jon and Bran. He also enjoyed stepping on Marillion's fingers and delighted in barely annoying Lysa by arming the clans and killing her people. He's definitely a morally great character, like all of us.
Right. I mean, he's not lying. He's loyal to those that are loyal to him, and he is vicious to those that are vicious to him, without a doubt. I mean,
and be good to you.
Yeah.
He is as frightened as I am, Sansa realized. Perhaps that should have made her feel more kindly toward him, but it did not. All she felt was pity, and pity was death to desire. He was looking at her, waiting for her to say something, but all her words had withered. She could only stand there trembling. When he finally realized that she had no answer for him, Tyrion Lannister drained the last of his wine. I understand, he said bitterly. Get in the bed, Sansa. We need to do our duty. She climbed onto the featherbed, conscious of the stare. A scented beeswax candle burned on the bedside table, and rose petals had been strewn between the sheets. She'd started to pull up a blanket to cover herself when she heard him say no. The cold made her shiver, but she obeyed. Her eyes closed and she waited. After a moment, she heard the sound of her husband pulling off his boots and the rustle of clothing as he undressed himself. When he hopped up on the bed and put his hand on her breast, Sansa could not help but shudder. She lay with her eyes closed, every muscle tense, dreading what might come next. Would he touch her again, kiss her? Should she open her legs for him now? She did not know what was expected of her. So, arranged marriages often involve a certain lack of consent and sexual activity. They're both trying to do what society expects of them, and so I sort of say, I hate the game, not the player, as the saying goes. This is
But have
fiction.
you seen the divorce rates? It's so low.
Well, I mean, because these are people that don't believe they have choice, right?
I'm just kidding.
This is fiction, but arranged marriages are a real thing today, and you know, it's they kind of are sort of accepted all over the world.
Yeah, matchmakers are everywhere.
Well, I mean, stop and think of Kat and Ned's wedding. There was no love there, and she definitely did not have the same desire at all for Ned that she had for Brandon.
Yeah, she grew to love him.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I mean,
my point is that a lot of people hate Tyrion for putting his hand on Sansa in this chapter, and I'm like, he was ordered to bed her. He started to it, and he realized that when she shuddered, that this was just wrong. And he realized it at that point, right? That she really wasn't into this, and he's like, then I'm not into it either.
He even touched her. She saw that inner battle raging. He was like,
they were both trying to do their duty. They were both going to be semi-willing, semi-despising what they're doing,
right?
And she shuddered, and he was like, "This is just wrong. I can't do this." So anyway.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's still at the point that George wants people to like Tyrion. So there's only so far he will let him go.
Yeah.
And in real history, men have not waited. Like there have been, the 12-year-old brides that
sure.
I mean, throughout human history up until.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What?
And still plenty today.
Right. And even with like even the us and our ancestors, I would say, 50, 60 years ago, especially
we're all the products
in
of
the South
and arranged marriages and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely throughout the history of the United States, there's definitely been those young brides, and even going into the Europe, I mean, just all throughout the world, it's happened.
Yep.
It's nasty. I can't stand it. This is one of the part of the story.
These guys had noses. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my daughter's 16 now, but when I was reading these books,
and I'm not chastising people for being mad at Tyrion for it. I'm just saying that that's not my personal interpretation. Is that Tyrion was
point? It should be also acknowledged that he stopped. Like, yes, he touched her, but he also stopped. Like,
as a father, that when you skip certain parts of this story, I appreciate it because I generally, after reading it the first and second time, I know a certain scene may be coming up, and I'll skip it just because I have a daughter. She's 16 now, but she grew up through me reading these books several different times, and reading even with that background and hating certain parts of this story, George. Granted, there's a lot of people give George a lot of crap for some of the stuff he puts in here, but he only pulled from what was actually happening in.
Sure. Yeah. It's hard to be as nasty as real history, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. He didn't sugarcoat anything. And with that at my back of my mind, every time I read these books, I don't automatically go to Tyrion's a pervert in this chapter. That's not exactly that's not what I see right away.
Right.
When reading
that's kind of
because later Tyrion sees this woman is disgusted with him, and he still goes through with it. Like there's no.
That's
right.
It's worse than that. It's not enough for her to be disgusted. Yeah. That's not even enough. He needs her to feel threatened by him. That's just not enough. Yeah, that's really
that is a perfect
situation. In that one, I can look back and say, you know what? Yeah, like he stopped. He's in there. So
that is a perfect example of the two different Tyrions that we get in this story.
Yeah,
we get the Tyrion here that can't do it,
And
then the Tyrion, what, maybe a year later, not even that, 6 months later, doing what he does with that one girl. So yeah.
Sansa, the hand was gone. Open your eyes. She promised to obey. She opened her eyes. He was sitting by her feet naked. Where his legs joined, his manstaff poked up stiff and hard from a thicket of coarse yellow hair. Was the only thing about him that was straight. My lady, Tyrion said, you are lovely, make no mistake, but I cannot do this. My father be damned. We will wait. A turn of a moon, a year, a season, however long it takes. So you've come to know me better and perhaps to trust me a little. The smile might have been meant to be reassuring, but without a nose, it only made him look more grotesque and sinister. Look at him, Sansa told herself. Look at your husband and all of him. Septim Mordain said all men are beautiful. Find his beauty. Try. She stared at the stunted legs, the swollen, brutish brow, the green eye and the black one, the raw stump of his nose and crooked pink scar, coarse tangle of black and gold hair that passed through his beard. Even his manhood was ugly, thick and vain, with a bulbous purple head. This is not right. This is not fair. How have I sinned that the gods would do this to me? How? On my honor as a Lannister, the imp said, I will not touch you until you want me to. It took all the courage that was in her to look in those mismatched eyes and say, and if I never want you to, my lord? His mouth jerked as if she'd slapped him. Never? Her neck was so tight she could scarcely nod. Why? He said. That is why the gods made whores for imps like me. Closed his short, blunt fingers into a fist, climbed down off the bed. Up next, and I mean that's for him to still not be mad at her after that is some restraint, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, he thinks later like that was brave, like that was brave.
Yeah. We see empathy and thought at this point with Tyrion that is on that side. Like I said, that George still wants us to like Tyrion and back Tyrion. That Jaime is the worst brother of the two, and
they both decide to change that course.
Yeah. I mean, I give him a lot of credit. I mean, he didn't.
Well, and what George really is doing is he wants the characters' hearts in conflict, but he also wants your heart, the reader's heart, in conflict, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and he wants the readers to therefore have arguments about these things and discussions.
Right. Because look at Shay, whom he claims he loves. He loves Shay, but not without Dad's permission. He's like, no, I'm not willing to ever go against him, but I love you so much. But to this point, like to this boundary, but Sansa, who's like, ew, don't touch me. And he's like, you know what? This isn't right. Like morally, he knows that there's a difference, but interesting.
And he's trying so hard to keep Shay from getting hung, basically strangled for being found in his bed. And he's going to find her in Tywin's bed and do that exact same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was still. I mean, he still considered that kind of his bed.
Yep. Up next, Storm 29, Arya 5. Maybe I'll go find that black-haired girl and ring her bell for her. Well, Robert did have Targaryen blood.
Yeah. Don't ring her bell.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, and I ain't sure sugarcoat it because George doesn't either. The amount of incest throughout history, and it's still going on in certain parts of the world, and probably as sick as
Westeros is history light compared to real history.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people give the story a hard time about some of the things that it shows us, but it shows us glimpses of our ancestors, really.
Well, the pharaohs were more gods than men,
I was
right?
just
that was the idea. And what did they have to do? Well, if they wanted to inherit, they had to marry their sister.
Or parents to children in some cases, like mothers to sons. Like just saying, like Westeros. I feel like some of us are pretty desensitized to it already.
Well, I mean, I think
Cersei is gross.
Yeah. Well, stop thinking about this. Okay, let's go 400 years ago. All right, and take us three. If we lived 400 years ago, the set of morals that we know now today to be this is right and just, that is sick and nasty. We wouldn't have thought that 400 years ago. That would have been everyday life.
There's some people that will tell you that specifically incest is the one thing that's like universally out there. But like I said, the pharaohs had to marry their sisters if they wanted to inherit. That was the only way that the pharaoh's son could inherit and follow the pharaoh.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that we look down on it now because we know better. But our ancestors in the past, if we lived in that time, we would not know that. All right, this is bad. This is nasty. It would have been. This is normal. This is what happens every day. This is what we were raised in. We wouldn't bat an eye at half this stuff in this book. We'd be like, okay, it's just a Tuesday.
When Prince Philip died, I saw somebody who said on Twitter, they said, beloved cousin to his wife or something like that. Beloved cousin to the queen, or however they phrased it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Royalty might have money, but it's probably a good. I don't think that.
Most of other problems.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And all that cousin and whatever you want to talk it leads to a lot of health problems. Which I'm surprised they lived as long as they did. I mean,
who's the famous family with the there were the Habsburgs, right? Where they had quite a few. They had quite a few like uncle, niece, and of course lots of first cousins.
And it goes on today, like in offshoot cults, really close to me actually, half sibling marriages, like it's happening.
You were talking about that the other day.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. We're pushing an hour here.
Get out of this funk.
Sorry.
I am so glad we got to dress up today. I told her, what was it, Friday? I'm like, we ought to dress up one day and not tell Richard we're going to do it.
And I was like,
see his reaction.
Is Richard going to be mad about this though?
No.
And then at the beginning of it, I'm like, cowboy hat or not cowboy hat? And she's like, oh yeah, definitely cowboy hat. You're not old new dude without it. So you can go back in the history of the videos. I want to say like the first 3 or 4 videos I had ball cap on, or maybe not, but as soon as I got my hat for my 50th birthday, it's been on every video except for the ones that I was dressed up as Robert or Blood Raven with a wig. But if I could get the hat to fit then, I would have. All right.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Like I said, though, one day, because I had offered y'all do this chapter Friday because Carter was sick, and Rich is like, "Sure, we'll try it." And then Lizzie's like, "No, this is a good chapter. We need all 3
chapter. I want us all to be here for this because I'm going to poke fun, and I want us all to be here for that."
Well, it's definitely something worth talking about. That's for sure.
Yeah. On the good chapters like this, I'm not saying that what happens in this chapter is good or anything. But stuff
I was just excited specifically for us all to be together for this chapter. So I was like, I want us all to be together.
Well, I mean, I agree. If it's a chapter that's got a lot of stuff in it that can be pointed out, I mean, 3 heads of the dragon is better than 2 for sure. But then you got those chapters that are a couple of pages. I mean, me and Richard could have the chapter done in 20 minutes, and there's not a lot going on. I mean. We try to fill with theory talk and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make like a tinfoil crown to wear. I don't have a cowboy hat, but if I make
my wife would kill me, but I think I'll try to make me a cowboy hat at tinfoil.
Of course, I used to think that there were twins that were part of the 3 heads. It took me a while to realize that there needs to be triplets. We need our Val.
I need to get a horn. I need the horn of winter.
There you go. All right. I normally I would call Wednesday Hump Day, but after this chapter, I think I'll refrain from doing it this time. Please join us on Wednesday with, was it Arya? What's the number?
Oh, I'm sorry. I closed my notes for a second here. 5, actually.
Yeah, she's definitely got the lead on chapter counts in this book.
Yep.
Okay,
Despite all the John and Sam going back and forth at the end, I think she still winds up at the top.
Well, it is his wife's favorite character.
Yes. Despite what Maester Monthly may have told you, like 4 of the last 5 episodes, he really does have that quote.
Yeah. He does have that quote.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we're right there at the hour mark. Lizzie, appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. It made this chapter a whole lot more fun. Richard, as always, this rereads would not be the same without you. I appreciate it every time we do a video.
It's been great.
So, and for everybody joining us, Mother Verimir, Chris for sure, Lady Thistle. I know Jeff's out there somewhere. Jeffrey. And then Charles catches on the flip flop. Valencar. I got to go back and look and see if you made any comments on the last videos. I know I've said it before. It does not jump up when you make a comment. So I try to at least. I know it used to do it every time, and it does not do it now. So I try to go at least every month and go back and look at unanswered comments or unviewed comments. But I know you're out there. I know you rewatch these. So I definitely do appreciate you. You've been here since the very beginning. You are our first fan, so we appreciate it. And to everybody else, we thank you, and have a good rest of your week. We will see you Wednesday, and y'all take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Lizzie. Bye, Richard.